On Face to Face today, my guest is the chief spokesperson of the National Democratic Congress, the communications officer, national communications officer of the National Democratic Congress, NDC. Sammy Gyamfi is his name. You're welcome to Face to Face.
Thanks for having me.
This is your second time in that job, right?
Yes.
How has it been for you?
Always been very, should I say, progressive. It's been impactful. And it's been a great learning experience.
You haven't occupied any national position before. That was the first time.
Yeah, that
you went
was the
straight
first
for the communications officer.
Yeah, that was the first time.
Is it that you had a communications background, or you just thought you communicate well?
Well, before my election, I had served in many communication roles, both in the private sector and also as a member of the party's communications team at different levels. As you may be aware, I was the spokesperson for the mayor of Kumasi between 2013 to 2016.
Which of them? The one running for president now?
Yes,
oh, okay.
At the time, yeah.
I'll ask you about him later.
Yes, and I was also a PRO for Tain KNUST at some point, served as a member of the Ashanti Regional Communications Team of the party, the Bono Regional Communications Team of the party, and later on, became the communications director for Eastern Cubic, you remember? Yeah, and also served as a member of the national communications team of the NDC. So I've been doing communications for the greater part of my life. And at that point, I felt I could be of a better service to the party in the role of national communications officer.
By your age, your age at the time, I'm sure you would have been one of the youngest, if not the youngest officer.
Yeah, for substantive positions, I would say the youngest, but there were other younger ones in deputy roles.
Okay.
But that is what the National Democratic Congress is, a party that believes and gives opportunities to young people.
That position you held, communications officer, you also had a communications director at the time, James Asante. Now I think it's Kakra is someone who is doing that. How do you marry these two portfolios, communications officer against director of communication?
Well, the roles of these two portfolios are clearly spelled out in the constitution of the party. So
it's a creation of the constitution?
Yeah, it's a creation of the constitution. Yes, we've always had it.
Is it not a duplication of?
No. When our now General Secretary, my boss and brother, Honorable Fifi Kwete, was propaganda secretary, which is what is National Communications Officer now. We had Hannah Tete as the communications director. At some point,
not for the Males campaign. She was not director of communications for the Males campaign. I thought that's what she was.
Yes, but even before that, President Mahama has been communications director before. Yeah, and Hannah Tete has also been communications director for the party at some point, even before she became the communications.
Even though there was a propaganda secretary.
Exactly. So we've had that since the inception of the party.
But you amended...
The directorate basically manages communications at the headquarters of the party. But the communications officer coordinates the communications activities of the party throughout the country. So, we have elected branch, constituency, and regional communication officers and their deputies in all the regions, constituencies, branches, and so on. That is our domain. That is our jurisdiction. But the Constitution also spells out a specific role for the directorate at the headquarters of the party. But it's one of, if you like, the two positions are not necessarily mutually exclusive. So the occupants of the position must always work together to ensure synergy and harmony of the communication strategy and programs of the party.
Would it be fair to say that your job is propaganda and Kakra Samoa's job is communication?
As the name suggests, National Communications Officer, Communications Director. There is no propaganda in any way.
Considering your antecedent.
In any case, there is nothing wrong with propaganda. If you understand what propaganda actually means. There is this misconception that propaganda means lies. Far from that. Propaganda basically has to do with propagating your messages in a persuasive and convincing manner.
But if you look at it from the Goebbels principle, it doesn't look nice.
We don't subscribe to that principle.
That's not the one that you are working on.
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's talk about a few more things before we deal with your state of the nation. You have elected new officers, you have removed an old chairman, you have brought in a new chairman. How is the party head office adjusting to the new administration and even the party grassroots? How is the adjustment going?
Well, we've already adjusted to the new changes, and the new leadership has hit the ground running. We are working, we're making great progress, we're on track, we are focused with our agenda, or on our agenda, to rescue our beloved country from the clutches of the current corrupt, nepotistic, inept, insensitive, and wicked Akufo-Addo.
How have you done that? Have you been able to get Chairman of Osampo, for instance, to be with you on this campaign, this work that you are trying to do? Is he on your national executive side?
The former national chairman is still very available to the party. You know him. He's a team player, and he's contributing his quota in his own small way to the important agenda of the NDC to recapture power in 2024 to save this nation. And so if you have any perception that he may be sitting on the fence, that will not be accurate at all. Everybody, we are, as our national chairman said in his victory speech at Congress on behalf of newly elected executives, we are leaving no one behind. All hands on deck. We are rallying our entire rank and file, former executives, current executives, former aspirants, current aspirants, for this important cause, the cause to save the soul, the dying soul of our nation.
You have a history, Dr. Josiah and the former Attorney General who was once your chairman, Obed Samoa. You have a history with people not being satisfied with how elections go or how Congress goes, and then they break away and all of those things, way back to Guzitano's time in the 2000s. What physical thing has Ofosu-Ampofo done to assuage the fears of anyone who may have such fears that there is no breakup or there's an impending breakup in the NDC where Ofosu-Ampofo may lead his team away from the...
We had a Congress on the 18th of December. Have you heard any issues about breakaway from anybody? These are complete red herrings.
Has he played any role, or is he playing any role, any specific role given to him?
Yes.
What role is he being?
Only last week, I was privileged to have sat in a meeting with him on some issues pertaining to the Eastern region, conflicts that had to be resolved with his involvement and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things that, not him alone, but other, former executives, former aspirants are actively engaging for the good of the party.
But you have not given him an assignment yet. Is there any assignment he's been given for the upcoming election of all the work he's doing?
Former national chairman, he's a member of the Council of Elders of the party. Yes. And on a day-to-day basis, I believe that anytime the party knocks on his doors, he will open his doors and happily perform any role he's assigned.
Was he at your State of the Nation address?
Well, I was on the stage. I don't remember.
Did you invite him? Do you know if he was invited?
We didn't invite him, but the general public was invited.
So he's a former. Let's talk about current executive, which is the elephant in your own room. You and the youth organizer. Have you patched up?
There's nothing to patch up.
Are you sure?
No, absolutely not.
There were a lot of things that have to be patched up. He has sat before me on this show and said so many things.
Well, I don't talk about such matters on shows like this. We are here to talk about the true state of the nation address.
Yeah, but the true state of the nation address delivered by the NDC, the true state of the NDC ought to be determined first, then we can...
Unfortunately, we are not discussing the true state of the NDC, but the true
state of the nation. It means that the true state of the NDC
which is what your viewers are interested in.
No, the true state of the NDC then may be in tatters, and you would have no locus to be talking about someone's true state.
Does the NDC look to you like a party in tatters.
If the youth organizer and the most youthful executive, the national communication officer, are loggerheads, that's a problem.
We are not at loggerheads. We are comrades. We have different roles, but anytime we have to work together for the good of the party, we do so.
Do you talk?
Of course we do.
When was the last time the two of you exchanged a phone call or a WhatsApp message?
Yesterday.
It was about what?
About the program we held.
Was he at your
Stop being
program?
mischievous.
No, I just want
about the true state
Was
of
he
the
at
nation.
your program yesterday?
Yes, he was there.
He was there.
Yeah, he was there.
He supports you wholly.
It was a party program. We support each other. Okay. Why do you want to create issues where there are no issues?
No, I'm not creating.
I think you really like to stoke, fires of controversy.
No, I have no such interest.
Look, we are one united family with a very clear objective, which objective is not only our objective as a political party, but an objective that affects, the destiny of our nation. A national duty, if I can put it that way. And that is very simple. Rescue the soul of Ghana from the clutches of this nation-wrecking Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP administration. And so that is what we are all focused on, working in unison to achieve. There are no divisions in our ranks. We are very focused. And so I think we should now move to the true state.
Are there no saboteurs at the party head office?
None that I'm
aware of. What about the role of the general secretary? Your chairman now is Ghana's longest serving general secretary. He still knows how to do general secretary work. Is he not sabotaging the work of the current general secretary?
Not at all. The two are working together.
We would have expected the general secretary to address the nation, not the chairman. Really, chairmen are usually ceremonial a lot of the times. It's general secretaries who run the show.
Says who?
He proved that. When he was general secretary, he was always the face of the party. In fact, I can say to you that 9 out of 10 stories published about the NDC would have Johnson Asidun Ketia photo or the umbrella instead of Chairman Oswampofu or Portofio or any of those.
The national chairman, anytime we're in opposition and we are without a flag bearer, is the leader of the party and always headlines key programs, key official programs of the party, unless he chooses to delegate another officer to do so. When Honorable Samuel Oswampofu was in office as national chairman, he headlined many press conferences and many public or even like party events. So this is not the first time. In fact, General Mosquito is not the type who likes to always be in the headlines or to interfere in the works of other executives at all. And as I've told you, so far, his leadership has been very sterling, and his working relationship with the General Secretary and all party officers has been superb.
No usurpation of powers.
No, that is why you've not heard anything like that. Okay. I think you should not be imagining these things.
Oh, no problem. Let's leave to another thing that I'm not imagining. You have done a coup d'etat in Parliament. You removed your leaders. Many think that was a suicidal thing that you did going into an election, considering that the people you removed are power blocks, and considering that you have a hung parliament where every vote counts. This will be the last time you should be, this should be the wrong time you should be rocking the boat in your own, caucus.
Well, we've time and again explained that the changes that were effected by the leadership of the party were well intended, based on broad stakeholder consultations. We've gone past that. Our old leadership are still members of parliament actively pursuing the cause of their constituents and the party. They are working closely with the new leadership to support or push the party's agenda of recapturing power in 2024. So there are no issues at all. And since that belongs to the past, I would rather we focus on the present and the future.
If you know how torpedoes work, it will look as though the face of the water is calm, but torpedoes are below and they may torpedo your campaign.
I say to you that there are no torpedoes below anything here.
How is Haruna Idrisu taking the decision to remove him?
I think he's issued a statement, or he's on public record. I saw a report by My Joe Online that he's taking the decision in good faith, and is moving on with his duties as Member of Parliament for Tamale South, okay, and as a leading member of the NDC.
Since you
if you know Honorable Haruna Idrisu, you will know that this is a man who has the NDC in his very DNA, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can detract him from pursuing the cause of the party.
Since you are the communications coordinator, please help me explain this rumor in town that the party plans to remove Muntaka Mubarak in Asawasi. Is that true?
Well, that is ridiculous, because the party cannot remove a member of parliament. Members of parliament are elected by their constituents. So we have no power to remove a member of parliament. If you are referring to the ongoing parliamentary primaries, the fate of all aspirants or candidates will be determined by the delegates in the various 276 constituencies.
Would the party protect some MPs because it thinks that these are very critical MPs who
the
have
party will not protect any MP or any aspirant. The party is protecting all 276 seats.
75?
No, we have 276. That is including SAR.
Okay.
Okay. So
you are electing
we were interested in protecting seats and not individuals. But where, for good reason, the party has to engage various stakeholders to build consensus on specific issues to improve the party's chances in the parliamentary elections of that constituency, the party will do so.
Okay. Let's talk about the new leaders you have. How have they matched up to the leadership of Osei Mensah and Alex Avenyomaki in the House?
They've been awesome. I think if I can describe their performance so far in just one word, that would be it. They've been awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Even though the argument has been made that you don't have lawyers at the front bench, you are a lawyer. You know that Parliament is a house of laws, lawmaking, even though you don't have to be a lawyer truly, but maybe if you understand the law, it will help you more with it.
They are leaders of a caucus, and in that caucus are many lawyers. And the mark of leadership is not that you'll be a jack of all trade. The mark of leadership is about harnessing the resources at your disposal, including the human resources at your disposal. So I believe that if the new leadership need any legal advice or inputs on any matters, the many lawyers in the caucus will be available or will be called upon to assist in that.
You do not think that your front bench is naked?
Our front bench is robust, holding the feet of this reckless Akufo-Addo government to the fire of accountability. Have you seen? Did you follow the debates on the so-called State of the Nation address, which was...
It's not so-called, it's a constitutional State of the Nation
The message on the State of the Nation delivered to Parliament by the press. Did you follow Honorable Atufoson's presentation? Honorable Jinapo, Honorable Kwame Abuja, and all that. These were insightful presentations based on facts that expose the hollowness and the many fallacies that were contained in the address of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So far, we are very impressed with their performance, and we will continue to work hand in hand with them to ensure that the NDC is victorious in 2025.
Very well. This is Face to Face on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandamado. My guest is Sammy Gyamfi. He's a National Communications Officer. We're here to talk about what they call the true state of the nation. But before then, I wanted us to understand the true state of the NDC. Now that we have settled that, we'll come back and we'll talk about the nation Ghana and what the NDC believes is the true state.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on City TV. My guest is Sammy Gyamfi, National Communications Officer. Let's talk about your so-called true state of the nation address. What is the idea? What do you want to say to Ghanaians?
Well, the idea is to present an accurate narrative of the state of Ghana to the Ghanaian people and the world so that we can all appreciate where we stand as a nation. And more importantly, to present to the people a true diagnosis, an accurate diagnosis of the factors that have landed Ghana in the unprecedented mess we currently find ourselves in. And more importantly, to discuss what we can do differently as a nation to come out of this economic quagmire. That is what President Akufo-Addo failed to do on the 8th of March 2023 when he appeared before Parliament to give a message on the state of the nation. And that is what we were duty bound to do as the main opposition party, and I should say the only viable alternative to this government. So that was the essence and the purpose of what we did yesterday. You would realize that President Akufo-Addo, in his address to the nation on the 8th of March this year, peddled many blatant falsehoods that had to be exposed. For example, he said that as a nation we're experiencing childhood killer disease vaccine shortages because there were global, there is a global shortage of these vaccines, which clearly is not true. And we demonstrated yesterday in the True State of the Nation address that none of our neighbors have recorded the kind of shortages we are seeing in the country relative to vaccines for the 6 childhood killer diseases. Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, Togo, Benin are not experiencing any such shortages. In fact, I had to take Nigeria to save us from this measles outbreak we are currently witnessing by donating, or should I say, lending to us some quantities of these vaccines for a period of 2 weeks, with a promise from our leaders that when we ultimately procure our vaccines, we are going to pay them back. So clearly, this was a president who went to our representatives in Parliament to make flimsy excuses for his own, failings as a leader. Again, you will recall that the president in the State of the Nation address has said that this government had not borrowed recklessly. Yesterday, our national chairman demonstrated clearly that this government has been very reckless in its borrowings and expenditures. We showed that even before COVID struck us sometime in March 2020, the government was spending recklessly, such that the budget deficit had risen or had increased, had exceeded the legally acceptable threshold of 5% to 7% in 2018 and 7.5% in 2019. That showed clearly that we're not living within our means and we were being very reckless with our expenditures. Again, we demonstrated that our public debt has ballooned from just about 120 billion as at December 2016, when the NDC Mahama administration was leaving office, to a whopping 600 billion and over. Okay, because according to the Bank of Ghana, as at November 2022, the public debt stood at 575 billion Ghana cedis, and that excluded SOE debts like ESLA debts, Dacha debts, the Kuku bills, and so on. If you put that together, you're talking about in excess of 600 billion as our public debt. Our debt to GDP ratio has increased from 56% as of December 2016, when we were leaving office, to 103%, the worst, in the last 4 decades that we have experienced as a nation. And so, if we are at a point where we have an unsustainable public debt, we are so bankrupt that we have defaulted on our debt obligations and are implementing a draconian debt restructuring program in which we are virtually forcing innocent citizens to accept very cruel financial haircuts, including pensioners who have lent out their lifetime savings to this government. Okay, then you cannot say you have not spent and borrowed recklessly, because that is not borne out by the facts. If you had not spent and borrowed recklessly, you will not be recording a debt to GDP of 103%. You will not be defaulting on your debt obligations, and you will not have been downgraded by all the sovereign credit rating agencies like Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor's from B- in 2016 under President Mahama, the one you described as incompetent, to now RD, which is a rating below junk status, below Ebola economy status. So clearly the president peddled falsehood when he said we had not spent or borrowed recklessly. But not that alone. He indicated that they spent their borrowed funds mainly on roads. And yesterday we demonstrated with facts and figures from their own budgets that that claim is a complete fallacy. Because the facts show, if you look at the expenditure outings on roads in their budgets, the budgets of this government from 2017 to 2022, they have spent only 10.6 billion Ghana cedis on roads, yet have had in excess of 820 billion Ghana cedis in total revenue. That constitutes only 1.6%, expenditure on roads relative to the total resource envelope which has accrued to them in the last almost 7 years. So that claim was also a fallacy. They have spent over 93% of the total resources that has accrued to them mainly on consumption. And that is a tragedy, because you are looking here at a government that is the most resourced, the luckiest in the history of this country. They've had more resources to transform this country than any government since Nkrumah, and than all governments from Nkrumah to Mahama put together, yet have wasted these funds on needless and useless ventures, such that today they have very little to show for the unprecedented resources they have. Right. So these and many falsehoods were presented by the president.
And that's what you sought to correct. Let's look at a few things that you ignored. So even though you mentioned COVID, you said it can't be a justification. The IMF country rep actually attributed our problems to COVID-19.
Well,
you do not want to agree with that.
If you've forgotten, let me remind you that on Eyewitness News, you reported the country director to Ghana, Mr. Pierre Laporte, sometime in 2021, for saying that Ghana's economy was already in a mess before COVID struck. You remember that?
I also remember playing a soundbite of Laporte saying that our problem was COVID-driven.
You're not talking. I think you're talking about the World Bank director.
World Bank.
I mean the IMF director.
Yes. I'm talking about the country director, IMF country director.
No, anybody watching us now or watching this interview can Google Ghana's economy showed signs of serious challenges before COVID-19.
Okay.
Pierre Laporte, it is there.
Okay.
Now you see, it is not what the IMF says or what the World Bank says.
No,
it's about, hold on.
It's about global people who
let me give you an answer. It's about what the facts say. Because you see, the IMF is like a doctor. Doctors have a certain duty of care to their clients. And so let's say you spent I'm just making a hypothetical example.
Make sure it's a good example.
Let's say you spent your childhood days drinking a lot of alcohol and destroyed your liver in the process.
Okay.
And you went to your doctor. No doctor will say that, look, you're a very useless person, very reckless. You've spent all your youthful days on alcohol, see your life now. No doctor will say that.
No, the doctor will tell you that this is the reason that you have...
They will tell you the reason, but at least they'll put it in a diplomatic way, a well-dressed way to make you feel, not so that they don't even kill you before they start giving you medication. The same thing applies to lawyers. Lawyers have a certain duty of care to their clients. If a client comes to me as a lawyer and he says that he's been charged with a criminal offense of, say, murder, all right? The first thing the lawyer thinks about is whether there was a killing, whether the killing was intentional or unintentional, to see whether he can raise an issue of provocation or manslaughter, other lesser charges, and so on and so forth, will all be exploited by any lawyer worth his salt. So right now that we have gone to the IMF for bailout, they are our doctor. Then we are the patients. They would definitely not say something that actually reflects the reality to the extent that that can hamper the bailout and the economic recovery program we are seeking support from them for. So
they were being diplomatic.
It is normal. I mean, in diplomatic circles, this is very normal. So if you listen to what these external players are saying, you'll be deceived. What you need to do as a journalist, what you need to do as a Ghanaian, is to examine the facts for yourself. Before COVID-19, what was the state of Ghana's economy?
Yes.
Before COVID-19,
but things have tripled or even quadrupled now. So it tells you that COVID really should be big. Because throughout 2020,
that is true.
Things were not good, but now they're worse.
COVID has magnified the economic problems of Ghana.
Yes, so that should be the government's defense.
But we are submitting that even before COVID, our economy was broken.
Yes, but I'm saying that.
And that COVID only came to make worse an already bad economy. And if you can, let me give you the indices so that those watching us can make informed decisions for themselves. Number one, before COVID, our cedi had depreciated against the dollar by close to 13%. It had depreciated against the pound by more than 10% and against the euro by over 15%.
And under COVID?
So much so, under COVID, the cedi actually appreciated against the dollar and these currencies.
Are you sure?
It became stronger. Why? Because
the same cedi that went to...
No. In 2020, the cedi became stronger.
No, I'm talking about COVID through post-COVID, not the start of COVID.
Hold on. Let's take the issues one by one. Because of COVID and its attendant, disruption of the world's trade system, importation and for that matter, demand for forex in 2020 was very low because many businesses were shut down. And so the cedi gained some artificial strength against the dollar, which the government bragged about.
But when the dust settled,
let's focus on the pre-COVID economy that this government keeps boasting about.
So I'm just saying that if you look at the pre-COVID economy figure,
hold on, such that the government set up a 40 member committee to investigate the reasons for the depreciation of the cedi. It should tell you the enormity of our economic woes at the time. That was before COVID. Before COVID, our debt service had increased from 11 billion Ghana cedis as of December 2016, when the NDC Mahama government was leaving office, to 37 billion Ghana cedis. And in fact, constituted 91% of our tax revenue. In other words, before COVID, we were so broke that 91% of our tax revenue was going into just one thing, the servicing of our debts. Before COVID,
which debts were inherited partly, though, just so that
every government inherit debts.
Yes, so then you left a problem for them. You left them a Trojan horse.
When we were leaving office,
and they are trying to fix
when we were leaving office, the public debt was 120 billion. Before COVID, the public debt had increased to 225 billion Ghana cedis. Debt to GDP had increased from 56% to almost 70% if you added SOE and other hidden
So my
debts.
point is that...
So that claim that we're on a very good economic trajectory before COVID is
You do not agree
false.
to that?
It's not about me not agreeing. The facts don't agree with
Let's
that.
look at expenditure. You said that the expenditure on roads is huge, but there's nothing to show for it. I mean, let's look at the physicals. We see roads being constructed.
You see roads where?
Oh, there are plenty of roads.
Where?
We've seen the Tamale.
The most important thing is what faction?
Overhead. We've seen asphalt roads in Accra and other places. In fact, there's an overhead on the way to my village at Afienya, the one over the railway line.
If you are made president and you make me your vice president, and we are giving 820 billion Ghana cedis in 6 years, you think we can't do a few roads here and there? It's not about the fact that some roads have been done. It's about the quantum of the roads and the fraction of our total revenue that has been invested in roads. You cannot be spending 1.6% of your total revenue on roads and say that, oh, we've used all the unprecedented monies we have had on roads. That is false. You have used only 6% of the total revenue that has accrued to you on infrastructure. That is very reckless because you borrow for investments. You know that? Investments that can pay for themselves. Investments that can create jobs. You borrow to spend on the productive sectors of the economy. That is what visionary, responsible leaders do. That is what President Mahama did with the little resources he got in 4 years. This government has rather borrowed for chop for consumption.
Let's look at the tangibles.
And that is why we find ourselves in the mess we are in. But even before we go to the next issue, let us settle this issue of COVID-19 once and for all. Apart from the pre-COVID economy that I have presented to you with incontrovertible facts, showing clearly that we had serious challenges with our economy even before COVID. You know that as a result of COVID, we've had in excess of 30 billion Ghana cedis. 30 billion Ghana cedis to manage the pandemic and to support our economy. According to the Auditor General, only 12 billion cedis of this amount was actually spent on COVID. And so Sandra, tell me, let's apply common sense here. If COVID-19 gave us as a nation 18 billion Ghana cedis more than what we needed to actually fight the pandemic, then how can any objective mind reasonably blame COVID for our economic woes?
Because
we had more than we needed.
Because we are waiting for the Accounts Committee of Parliament to do a thorough work of the Auditor General's report. You do know that the Auditor General's report is not sacrosanct.
No, I'm sorry. You're totally wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
You're totally wrong.
We do know that
totally
when the
wrong,
Auditor General is done,
you of all people will say this.
Sammy, when Auditor General finishes their work, they write to institutions to respond. They incorporate the responses in their report. Then they take the report to the Accounts Committee of Parliament, led by a member of Parliament from your side.
Public Accounts Committee.
They take it to Parliament, and then Parliament gives it to the Accounts Committee. That's the same thing.
Yes.
Then the Public Accounts Committee does a thorough work. It goes into the report, calls people, questions them. And a lot of the time we are told that, by the time the Auditor General did this work, we had not done ABC. Now we have done this, we have returned money to chest. We've seen a lot of those happening.
The Auditor General is constitutionally independent.
Yes.
When he concludes his audit report, that is this. It is final.
It cannot be final.
Can I finish?
Yes.
It is final. Parliament cannot subtract or add to that report. Check Article 187 of the 1992 Constitution. When that report is presented to Parliament, they only do two things: to debate it, debate it, and to deal with any issues arising from it, which is implementation. So they cannot amend, Parliament cannot amend an audit finding of the Auditor General.
But a witness can appear and say that we had provided so much to the Auditor General, but as of the time we did the presentation, to prove that what the Auditor General is saying is not right, they had already gone to press.
They go there and to say that all the time, but it doesn't change the finding of the Auditor General.
Yeah, but
the only way you can challenge a finding of the Auditor General if he surcharges you, or disallow an expenditure that you have made as a public officer, is to go to the court.
But
Parliament only debates. Let me explain the practice.
I understand
Parliament
the practice.
debates, but because usually the report that goes to Parliament is voluminous, Parliament for its own purposes refers a report to the Public Accounts Committee to generate a report from the Auditor General's report, which is debated.
I know the process. I mean,
So
my point is that during that work of the committee, people show up before the committee and say that some monies that were supposedly missing have since been returned to chest. These are information
which
that comes
does
from all
not
the time.
in any way undermine or change.
No, it would. If the Auditor General said 100 billion was blown, and then a committee sits up, and then the person comes and shows receipts that, it's not 100 billion, but it's 90 billion.
What committee?
The Committee of Parliament.
That report of the committee will be inconsequential as far as the...
No, but the money has been returned, so the money was not lost.
Chief.
Boss.
We are talking about, I believe, the special audit conducted by the Auditor General of COVID-19 expenditure.
Yes. Yes.
We are told by the Auditor General that an amount of 1.4 million cedis, equivalent to 14 billion old Ghana cedis, was paid to a contractor called Modern Securities Limited to educate students on COVID-19 safety protocols. Something that teachers in these institutions could have done for free. We pay somebody 14 billion OCDs to do that education. The Auditor General says that he found that no work was done, no education was done, yet this company has been paid in full. what is the bearing, okay, or what bearing does the argument you are making have on this damning finding? We are talking about COVID funds here, money meant for the management of a public health crisis, monies meant for saving lives, which according to the Auditor General, this government took 370 billion cedis from it, 37 million cedis, to pay for so-called free water. And when the Auditor General asked them for water bills to support these payments, there are no water bills. They paid another 17 million Ghana cedis for food, hot meals.
We saw them distributing the food.
What kind of food did you see?
Or was dry jollof and egg or something?
I like the adjective used, dry jollof.
Just to make your case for you.
Gary and so on. Sandra, hold on.
Yeah, I need to go.
Do you know that this government could not produce any receipts to support it? So clearly when the president tells you that we have not abused COVID funds, he lied.
This is Face to Face on City TV. When we come back, the issue of corruption also came up in Johnson Asido Nketiah's address. He says corruption has defeated Akufo-Addo and his family. We will interrogate that when we come back. Please stay.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandam. I'm here with Sammy Gyamfi, National Communications Officer of the NDC. At the state, what you call the true state of the nation address, you also touched on corruption. And you made it seem as if this government has done absolutely nothing in the fight against corruption.
But what have they done? What they have done, okay, is that they have come to promote corruption. President Akufo-Addo came to enable corruption.
Explain.
In fact, if corruption was ever a human being, his name would be President Akufo-Addo. If you wanted to see corruption and you saw President Akufo-Addo, you would have found your answer.
Those are serious allegations.
That is what it is. No precedent in the history of this country has promoted corruption than President Akufo-Addo has.
Even when there was a president who was investigated for alleged corruption by Shraj.
And exonerated.
Well, exonerated.
That's the beauty of it. Now, this president rather engages in corruption himself. His vice president engages in corruption.
No.
I'll give you the evidence.
Okay, so listen.
His vice president engages in corruption. Their officials engage in corruption. And when they are caught by state agencies, they either fight them, or even before investigations are done, the president comes out to whitewash himself and sometimes his corrupt officials. As I speak to you, Kwaku Agyeman has been indicted by the Auditor General, the Health Minister, for paying $120 million for COVID-19 vaccines, which to date, $81 million of that amount has not been supplied. In other words, we've paid $81 million for vaccines that we have not received as a nation. This is the same person.
That's corruption?
Of course.
For non-delivery of services or goods?
What is being done to retrieve that money for us? You don't have money to buy vaccines for the 6 childhood killer diseases. Yet for 2 years now, you claim to have paid $81 million for COVID-19 vaccines. And the vaccines have not been supplied to us. And you are still in office. And you want the nation to give you another money to go and buy vaccines for children. Now, if Ghana was your personal company, will you run it like that? But that is not even what I am going, I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a specific indictment of the health minister by Parliament, the Parliament of Ghana, that he engaged in procurement breaches in the procurement of Sputnik V vaccines. You know that. You know he was investigated by a joint parliamentary committee, which had majority of his members from the ruling NPP side of the House, and that committee made up of his members from his own party indicted him for procurement breaches which constitute a crime. Yet instead of sacking this minister,
is that corruption?
That is crime.
Yes.
Corruption is even an understatement.
I know. I'm just saying that
More than
corruption is separate from procurement
At the
breaches.
time, yes. As I speak to you now, why is Honorable Atufosin being prosecuted? Why
For procurement issues.
the NC matter?
But that's not corruption.
Listen, breach of procurement processes under the Public Financial Management Act constitute a crime and constitutes corruption. But aside the breach of the procurement process is the inflation, the deliberate inflation of the price of those vaccines, because he paid a whopping $19 for Sputnik V vaccines, which according to the Russian government, was sold at less than $10. Clear inflation. But for the vigilance of the NDC minority in parliament,
So the money has since been returned.
So if you steal my money and I catch you and you return it, you are no longer a thief. Is that what you're saying? A thief is a thief. Whether you have been caught and you have refunded the stolen item is immaterial. The point is that did he pay $19 for vaccines which cost less than $10? Yes. Did he follow the procurement law in the procurement of those vaccines? No. Has he been indicted by the legislative arm of government? Yes. Why has President Akufo-Addo conferred a national award on this?
All of this happened before the elections of 2020. He went to the polls, the people of his constituency voted for him. He came to Parliament, the president nominated him as a minister. He went before the appointment committee, came before the plenary. Your members sat there and voted for him to become a minister again.
No.
He's a minister because Parliament said so. And Parliament has half of his MPs being your side.
Adolf Hitler was elected. Do you know that? So the fact that people elect somebody into office doesn't mean that.
Yeah, but not elected by people who are sitting here saying that he's a thief.
But the NDC didn't elect him as member of parliament.
So NDC MPs decided to.
The NDC didn't elect him as member of parliament, and I'm not too sure. We have to check the days whether at the time of his vetting.
It was the reason that you went to town on the speaker.
No.
You were angry with that.
No, I think you're missing up the days. That had nothing to do with the Sputnik V.
But I'm just saying that still, Parliament sat and approved him, and that Parliament includes your MPs. Let's talk about the specific allegation that the president is corrupt. Which was the evidence?
Listen, President Akufo-Addo gave executive approval to the Mary Novation deal. And when that deal was presented to Parliament, we found out that the deal had been inflated by over $800 million. When we caught him pants down, a newspaper affiliated to him, Statesman, published that the president was misled. You remember the Boache Jacko scandal?
I do.
That's direct evidence of corruption by the president. A president who gives executive approval for an inflated deal when he in opposition was lambasting his predecessor for falsely lambasting him for inflating the cost of Rage Hospital and all that. It wasn't a mistake. If ordinary people like myself and yourself read that document and saw that the deal had been inflated, why do you think that the president, who is a lawyer of many years standing, who has many advisors, experts at his disposal, they deliberately inflated, padded the cost of that project to dupe the state? Why? The vice president. Is his administrator not being prosecuted by the special prosecutor today?
That's administrator.
For stealing somebody's rice.
Allegedly.
10,000 baht.
Allegedly.
He wrote a letter.
Allegedly.
Sanda.
So, I mean, you're a lawyer.
President Mahama was in office.
Yeah, but you're a lawyer.
If President Mahama was in office and his personal assistant perished that thought, Stan Dube, wrote a letter on President Mahama's letterhead to customs to release to President Mahama 10,000 bags of rice for Ramadan donations.
Mahama steals rice.
What would you have said?
Mahama steals rice.
What? Exactly.
But you are Sammy Gyamfi, you are a lawyer, so say Mahama allegedly steals rice.
Allegedly, say I've seen the letter and you're saying allegedly. But it is not in doubt. In fact, the vice president
is the subject of a court action. Until that court determines that it was theft,
the vice president office have issued a statement.
Sammy, theft is not just because someone has taken something. Theft is because Act 28(9) says it's theft.
Is the gentleman being prosecuted?
Yes. Has he been found guilty? No.
But the office,
the
office of the vice president has confirmed that indeed the letter was written.
Yes.
attempt to steal is stealing. Don't you know that?
No, the court
they are
has
called inchoate offenses.
Yes, but the
so
court
there is a crime of attempt.
For now,
you wrote a letter on
for now,
official letter here to steal somebody's rights.
For now, it's a trial.
No, listen.
Let's let the court determine.
Why is the administrator still working in the office of Bawumia?
They should be fired. So that means.
You can't fire the man. You
So
wrote
that
a
means.
letter
So that means
on his
Bawumia.
instructions.
So that means Bawumia corrupt.
What? It doesn't only make him corrupt. It shows you the kind of vice president we have. A vice president who is allergic to the truth, who attempts to steal people's rights, who changes a requirement of bank guarantee into insurance guarantee.
He hasn't done any of these himself, though, directly.
Listen, okay, let me give you direct evidence of corruption. In the PDS matter, was it not Vice President Dr. Bawumia who allowed PDS to change the condition precedent of bank guarantee into an insurance guarantee? And even when the insurance guarantee was presented to government, didn't do basic due diligence check to confirm its authenticity, only for us to learn later that the insurance guarantee was fake and that PDS had scammed us, okay, and that till date, the billions of cedis you and I paid to PDS in electricity bills have still not been refunded to the state.
Sammy, we need to go.
We have to blame all these things on them. So I just want to conclude by saying that the true state of our nation was what was presented yesterday at the University of Professional Studies by the national chairman of the NDC. A country in which young people cannot find jobs, a country in which many young people go to bed without knowing when the next meal will come from, a country where thousands of people are being laid off on a daily basis, and a country where, even as our leaders continue to waste the public purse and live luxuriously, people struggle to afford just 1 square meal a day. That is the true state of our nation. And no amount of falsehood from this government and their surrogates can change that. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's Sammy Gyamfi, National Communications Officer of the NDC. My name is Umaru Sandamado. Thank you for watching Face to Face. Please stay with City TV. It's your world.